my name is Youlan, and this is my YouTube channel about AP Psychology series. And today we'll be talking about Unit 6.2, Social Development in Childhood. So if you haven't watched my previous videos, please do watch those because they are really important and the knowledge is building upon each unit. So infants form social attachments even before they are born. As described in our last video, Unit 6.1, babies show a preference for their mother's voice and native language. These attachment bonds, which begin before birth and strengthen after birth, are crucial to the infant's survival. Many psychologists have studied the ways in which children form social attachments and how these social attachments influence development. The earliest form of attachment once the child is born comes from bodily contact with the mother. Scientists have long documented the benefits of skin-to-skin contact. Not only can skin-to-skin contact help soothe the child and also enhance communication, but it can amazingly also help the infant stabilize body temperature and even improve the function of their heart and lungs, which are the respiration and respiratory and cardiovascular system. But what necessitates this early form of bonding? During the 1950s, Harry Harlow conducted his groundbreaking research in the area of body contact and attachment theory. Harlow and his wife, Margaret, bred monkeys for their research and learning. To prevent the spread of the infection, they began separating young monkeys from their mothers early on. These young monkeys were typically put in a stereo cage with a baby blanket for warmth. Interestingly, Harlow noticed that when the blanket was removed to be laundered, the young monkeys became distressed. This observation contradicted the theory that attachment stems from the need for nourishment. The blanket clearly offered no food or physical nourishment to the baby monkey, but they became attached to it nonetheless. Why was this happening? According to Harlow, this was because of the contact comfort that the blanket provided. To test this theory, an astonishingly unethical experiment was designed. Be warned, the following experiment contained elements of animal cruelty, and it was later found to be unethical, as developed by the APA, American Psychological Association. So Harlow created two types of artificial mothers. One was a bare wire cylinder with a wooden head and an attached bottle for feeding. It was really terrifying, it sounds. The other mother was wrapped in terry cloths and provided no nourishment. If attachment bonds formed from the infant's need for nourishment, then the young monkeys should prefer the wire mother with an attached bottle. The results suggested otherwise. Young monkeys presented with both mothers overwhelmingly preferred the comfort of the terry cloth one over the wire one, despite the fact that the cloth mother provided no food. When the babies became stressed, they would cling to the cloth mother for comfort. When exploring, they would use the cloth mother as a secure base, returning to her every so often after venturing out. The experiments became even more unethical. Harlow began to sequester young monkeys from mothers for years at a time, with no source of attachment or interaction, only food and drink. The result was troubling. These neglected monkeys became completely catatonic and indifferent toward their environment. In adulthood, they could not properly bond or relate with other monkeys. Female monkeys could not get pregnant, since they had no interest in social interactions. Harlow had to artificially inseminate these females in order for them to reproduce. Sadly, Harlow observed that these neglected female monkeys completely ignored their babies and neglected to feed them. In some cases, the mothers even injured or killed their babies. The implication was really clear. These neglected mothers could not properly love or bond with their babies. Harlow's studies, as horrifying as they were, support the idea that the attachment bonds stem from much more than a need for nourishment. Security, safety, comfort, and affection play fundamental roles in the attachments children form with their caregivers. The behaviors of the young monkey suggested a need for security and safety takes precedence even over the basic need for nourishment. More so, Harlow demonstrated that these early secure social bonds are crucial for healthy development early on. Later on, early relationships play a key role in later adult behavior. Children who do not receive proper affection or attention may struggle to create secure relationships later in life. And this is something that also plays a key role in our later attachments related series. So then we have Conrad, Lorenz, and familiarity. In addition to contact, familiarity is also a key element in attachment. Conrad Lorenz studied a phenomenon known as imprinting. which is a rigid process by which some animals form strong and nearly immediate attachments early in life. He noted that there appeared to be a critical period in which this attachment was formed. Lorenz therefore studied the imprinting that took place amongst the ducks. Since the first thing most hatchlings see is their mother, it would make sense that these ducklings naturally imprinted the female duck, like, for example, their face. However, Lorenz thought, what if the first thing they saw was not a duck at all? What if it was like a particular Austrian ethologist like Lorenz? Lorenz discovered that the ducks imprinted upon him, just as they would their own mothers. They followed him everywhere he went, and sure enough, this attachment was difficult to reverse. Children, unlike ducklings, do not imprint. They do, however, display a preference for familiarity. Mere exposure to things fosters fondness, and children absolutely display an affinity towards things that are familiar with, whether that be eating the same food every day or like preferring the comfort of certain people. So these ideas about attachment also raise other questions. We know that children become attached, but what are the various ways in which attachments can form, and what accounts for differences in the attachment styles of different children? Developmental psychologist Mary Ainsworth was interested in this idea. To explore different attachment styles, she developed the strange situation experiment in the 1970s. First, she observed mothers and their infants at home for 6 months in order to observe the relationships. Later, when the babies reached 1 year of age, she observed them in a strange situation, most typically a playroom within the laboratory. Just like Harlow observed, infants with sensitive and responsive mothers demonstrated secure attachment. With their mother's presence, they could confidently and possibly comfortably explore the new playroom, even without there's no caregiver. However, when the mother left, they become distressed. Upon her return, they went to her seeking comfort. About 60% of children, according to Ainsworth, demonstrated that secure attachment. Ainsworth was also identified styles of insecure attachment. Some infants would cling to the mothers, refusing to explore their new surroundings. When the mother left and returned, they would either cry loudly and remain upset or appear indifferent to her return. These insecure styles of attachment were the result of unresponsive or insensitive mothers. Furthermore, these insecure styles of attachment appeared to be positively correlated with anxiety or difficulty forming trust in relationships later in life. However, returning to nature versus nurture debate, there's a question of temperament, or the person's seemingly stable pattern of emotional reactivity. Why do infants, even those born to be the same parents, seemingly display varying temperaments regardless of parenting styles? Supporting this idea, physiological differences appear to coincide with temperamental differences. In short, there appears to be a genetic link between temperament and biology, which are like patterns of nervous system, neurotransmitter levels, etc. Like most things in psychology, our personalities and attachment styles appear to rely on the interaction between both nature and nurture. Erik Erikson also focused on attachment and security through his psychosocial stages, and we'll be talking about this in Unit 6.5, which is our later videos. According to Erikson, there are 8 phases of psychosocial development, which last from birth until death. In the early stages of development, children learn to develop basic trust and autonomy through secure and nurturing attachments. And then we have parenting styles and Baumrind. So Diana Baumrind developed key theories in the area of parenting styles. Parenting is no easy feat, and parents' approaches to rearing a child tend to vary greatly. Some parents are strict with incredibly high standards. Others tend to be permissive and lax, while others are known as helicopter parents who have a tendency to hover over their children closely. Which style is the best? Baumrind and her associates at UC Berkeley identified 3 parenting styles, which were and then later was expanded to 4. So the first one is authoritarian parents. Oh, by the way, those 3 styles in this video is the ones that are will be tested on AP psychology curriculum. So not the first one. So authoritarian parents tend to be extremely strict and demanding and expect blind obedience. These parents follow an almost militaristic approach to discipline, and why? Because I said so. Expectation of obedience. And then we have authoritative parents who also hold rules and expectations and expect obedience, but do so in a more responsive way. Rules are clear and the reasoning for these rules explained to the child. Communication is encouraged and parents are supportive of their children. And finally, we have permissive parents who submit their child desires easily. They do not hold their children to high expectations and place very few demands on their children. Children are rarely punished even when they misbehave. It may be worth noting that later the category of permissive parenting was later further divided. The further distinction identified permissive parenting or indulgent parenting and neglectful parenting. In both situations, children face low expectations and few behavioral consequences. However, indulgent parents tend to give in their child's every whim, while neglectful parents tend to ignore the child's behavior or treat it with indifference. Bauman concluded that children with authoritative parents grow up to be the most well-adjusted. As noted earlier, these parents develop rules and expectations, but are open to reasoning and opinions for such. For example, you can't eat cookies before dinner because you will spoil your appetite. They are open with their children and encourage communication and transparency. These children show the highest level of self-esteem and self-reliance. They also display social competence and higher academic achievement. Authoritarian parenting is associated with lower academic performance and lower levels of self-esteem. Those with overly permissive parents tend to be impulsive, egocentric, and may have problems later in life with relationships. And that is Sigmund Freud and psychosocial development. Within the AP Psychology curriculum, most of the information regarding Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory falls within the unit of personality. However, Freud did have a few extremely interesting ideas about development in childhood. According to Freud's psychosocial theory of development, infants are born with sexual and aggressive tendencies and move through a series of fixed stages as they develop. In each stage, pleasure is focused in a particular erogenous zone and development depends on the infant's ability to resolve conflict related to that area. The stages are known as oral stage, anal stage, phallic stage in which the Oedipus complex occurs, latent stage, and genital stage. Freud believed that infants may become developmentally fixated or psychological stuck if they are unable to resolve the conflict successfully or if conflict resolution is too traumatic. These fixations could result in a variety of developmental issues related to personality. While Freud's theories have been widely criticized for there's no precision or there's no really data, his contribution to psychology still has a great importance and it has a great impact on the field. So modern-day psychologists still believe that childhood trauma, even if the individual is not consciously aware of the trauma, can prevent development in some way in a multitude of ways. As seen through the series previously described, traumatic experiences can follow us well into adulthood. Albert Bandura is known for his influential work with social learning theory, and in 1961, he did a bubble doll experiment, which was demonstrated how children learn behavior from modeling that of parents. We also mentioned this experiment multiple times in our previous units as well. So in this experiment, Bandura placed children in one of three conditions. In all of the experimental conditions, children watch an adult interact with a large doll. In the first group, children watch as the adult behave aggressively toward the doll, throwing the doll, shouting at it, and even using a hammer in some cases. In the other experimental group, children were exposed to an adult who treated the doll more kindly, playing nicely or just ignoring it altogether. In the control group, children were exposed to no adult model. Afterward, the children were subjected to mild aggression arousal, or in other words, they were put in a situation bound to tick them off. Scientists took the children to a separate room with a lot of fancy toys. The children were told that these were the scientists' best toys and that they could be reserved for other children. So, now that these kids are nice and peeved, what will happen? Bandura found that, as you may have guessed, that children who had watched the more violent adults were far more likely to imitate aggressive behaviors. The evidence is really clear. Children learn through observation and have a strong tendency to model the behavior they see in adults. Poor Bobo. Yeah, so this is basically observational learning, and if you haven't watched that unit, which I believe is unit 4, which is all about learning, please to watch that series because that's really important, and a lot of the experiment in AP Psychology is associated with that unit. Okay, so that's the end of the video, and thank you for watching.